It is part 2 of the week 1 preview here on the Audible. It's the footballguys.com podcast. Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom celebrating 20 years, and we're celebrating it with the Giants and Washington. Well, Washington, we're going to talk about a good team here. But first, let's talk about the Giants and how long we have to go through this facade of Russell Wilson as their starter. But either way, it's week 1. Excitement for Giants fans, at least I hope.
Right, the do or die year for Brian Dable. And you're right that if we're talking about the Giants, we're actually talking about some story that's going to happen not in week 1, which is Jackson Dart taking over. That was the buzz, the momentum coming out of training camp. And we may even see some Jackson Dart special plays. I don't know. But we are going to see a lot of passing to Malik Neighbors, who's not on the injury report. You got Wan'Dale Robinson. There was some talk maybe he'll work more downfield. We'll see. Theo Johnson's a little banged up, so you could see some extra targets for Robinson or Darius Slayton or Tyrone Tracy out of the backfield. And Tyrone Tracy has not created a lot of buzz, but Brian Dable, when asked about him earlier in the preseason training camp, said he's bigger, he's faster, he's quicker, he's more focused. That sounds good. Cam Scadaboo was hurt and isn't really threatening him for touches. Maybe Devin Singletary will mix in, but Tyrone Tracy, classic what the heck flex cease. Washington adds Von Miller. Marshawn Lattimore is healthy. Remember, Dan Quinn is a defensive genius, right? Also, Andrew Thomas, still with that Liz Frank injury from last year, probably going to play, but I don't know if he's 100%, and that's not great when it's an injury from last year. So, yeah, we're going to sort this all out, Cease, and like you said, we're probably not going to see the real Giants offense until we see Jackson Dart.
Okay, I have a non-hot take, but it is an opinion that I stand by. I think the Commanders take a step back this year. Not because I don't love Jaden Daniels. I do, and there will be no Jaden Daniels slander on any show that I participate on because he's awesome. He's incredible, and I just don't think they put enough around him. I mean, sure, week 1, fat Deebo Samuel will be fine. Terry McLaurin, thank God. And I love Adam Peters, but dude, what are you doing? You put the foot on the gas. A guy like Terry McLaurin wants to get paid. You pay the man. 100-year-old Zach Ertz, like, okay, we'll have to talk about the conversation of depth charts because Corey Krosky-Merritt was 4th on the depth. Oh, God. Alvin Kamara was 3rd on the Saints depth chart his rookie year in week 1. So JCM, good old Bill, Austin Eckler, like, how's this thing going to look? And again, week 1, they should handle their business against the Giants. I just think overall, this isn't a recipe for the type of success the Commanders had last year.
And maybe the name we need to bring up, Cease, is Cliff Kingsbury. What's Cliff Kingsbury's counterpunch going to be? He can't expect everything worked last year, but he can't expect that the same things are going to work this year. And there's definitely some worry about that. Also, when you add Abdul Carter, I think he won the executive straw poll on defensive rookie of the year. And you add that to Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. Now, they did get Laramie Tunsil on this Washington offensive line, but this is going to be a tough matchup. You're probably going to see a lot of short passing. I don't know if he's fat Debo anymore, Cease. I don't know if he's fat. Every report out of Washington is he's focused. There was one narrative we couldn't buy into, I think now, that it was pneumonia really that slowed him down last year. As before the pneumonia, he looked like good old Debo. I think he's going to look like good old Debo. And to slow down that pass rush, a lot of screen passes and short passes, like you said, to Zach Ertz. I don't know if Noah Brown is healthy. Jalen Lane's an interesting name. And then the backfield. I mean, look, sometimes week 1 is just for scene setting, fact finding.
All right.
Theory testing. You like my alliteration here, Cease? The 6 for 66. We're going to see. I mean, it's possible that Corey Krosky-Merritt isn't even active for this game because Jeremy McNichols is going to be up as the 3rd back for special teams. But are we going to talk about him on the waiver wire show as a shut him down? No! Like you said, it's a long season. Travion Henderson is 3rd on the unofficial depth chart. They really just put those unofficial depth charts out to watch us all flap and scream and cluck. So we'll see. Whatever this backfield looks like in week 1, how they perform is going to determine how it looks going forward, not what was on an unofficial depth chart. So we're not starting any Washington running backs except maybe Austin Eckler in a deep PPR league, but we'll have a better idea next week.
Yeah, next week we'll have a better idea about all these teams, including Carolina and Jacksonville, our next game up. And if we talk about the Carolina side, yeah, there's some excitement around what more can Bryce Young do as he continues to take steps in his career. And well, I'd put my chips on him more than Trevor Lawrence. That's for just a little bit, Bloom. But let's talk about the Carolina side.
How quickly things change.
Yep.
Cease, a couple weeks ago, we would have said, look at all of these varied weapons. Jalen Coker's having a good camp. There's a downfield weapon. Adam Thielen, we already know he's got this chemistry with Bryce Young. Xavier Legette is going to play in a role that is more suited to him. And, of course, there's Tetairoa McMillan. Well, Coker's on IR. I think it's the same quad that cost him some games last year. That's not good. Out of nowhere, really. And Thielen's in Minnesota. So now you have Hunter Renfrow. Welcome. Hey, he made some noise at Clemson, right? Just right down the road. He's going to be that slot receiver. You have Xavier Legette probably playing more outside again, and then Tetairoa McMillan. Well, that's the part that is going to stay intact. And if anything, maybe he's more the focus of the game plan against a Jacksonville defense that is transitioning under a new defensive coordinator, Anthony Campanile, I think, from the Green Bay system. And then you have the backfield. Now, there's some talk that they don't want to run Chuba Hubbard into the ground. But remember, when Chuba Hubbard was splitting with Miles Sanders early last year, before Bryce Young became the post-buy confident Bryce Young, Chuba Hubbard had some pretty good fantasy games. And Rico Dowdle maybe is going to be more of a committee back than we thought at first. But if this offense takes a step forward, Cecil, here's a contrast for you. And maybe in fantasy football where we get a little ahead of ourselves. There's excitement in this game about Liam Cohen's offense for Jacksonville. We're about to talk about that. But it's year one. It's the first game. This is year two of the Dave Canales system. Maybe year two is when these offensive whizzes, for Ben Johnson, it took really his second season. For Dan Campbell, we should say, it took like halfway through the season before the Lions offense really started to click. Maybe this is when the Panthers offense, even without Thielen and Coker, starts to click.
Yep. Looking for it to click and looking for Trevor Lawrence. It really that hinges on him. We know about Brian Thomas. We'll be watching the backfield there in Jacksonville. And Travis Hunter's a total wide receiver. All right. He's a nice flex play. But it comes down to, does Trevor Lawrence take those steps like Baker Mayfield did?
Yeah, and this is going to be a growing pains game, maybe. Although Carolina's defense is one they're going to pick on. They have Derek Brown back, and he looks like he's all the way back from his season-ending injury. That's going to help their run defense. And you're not going to – this is another fact-finding, scene-setting, theory testing for this backfield. Don't start any of them, and we'll wait and see how they look. We'll wait and see how they're used. You're going to start Brian Thomas Jr. Pretty excited to see him with Trevor Lawrence and an actual competent offensive coordinator. But again, this is an offensive line still settling in, and it's possible that there could be some bumps in the road, but maybe not with Travis Hunter. And that's what we're really excited about is he is going to focus on offense. And a really good video going around out there of he and Trevor Lawrence. And I seized on this. I didn't understand, I think, how much it is the motif for their relationship. Trevor Lawrence is learning how to dance. Travis Hunter is teaching him how to dance.
Nice.
And isn't that really a metaphor for what? I mean, Trevor Lawrence came into the league with so much expectations. He had already accomplished so much. Mm-hmm. And you see the weight on his shoulders, and you see what he's been through, Urban Meyer, Doug Peterson, etc. He just needed to loosen up a little bit, right? So this is going to be pretty exciting to watch. I think for Jacksonville fans, Travis Hunter is potentially a franchise changing player, and not just because of what he does on the field.
Yep. Love it. That, of course, Travis teaching him how to dance. That's the guy you want teaching you how to dance. You want, of course, to talk about Tennessee and Denver. It is a Broncos show. Titans side, Cam Ward against Vance Joseph.
And newly rich Nick Bonito.
Yes. I am not so very sure about this one for Cam Ward's side, but we'll see what the kid can put up a fight. He loves Calvin Ridley. Don't test Pat Surtain. Let me just say this. I think the offense for Denver can have some struggles we'll get to in a little bit. I think Tennessee's offense struggles mightily against what could be the best defense in the league.
Yes. Poor Cam Ward, okay? I mean, really. And also you have now Dan Moore is on the injury report. Their new left tackle, J.C. Latham, the right tackle, was already banged up, and you're going up against the Broncos. And you basically have one viable target, Calvin Ridley. Patrick Surtain just has 0 viable targets. 0 viable targets. And yeah, I mean, you have Tony Pollard, but how soon before this game just kind of gets away from them? Cease, what do you say about when the backup quarterback's in, like rich man, poor man? Brandon Allen. I mean, maybe Brandon Allen should just start this game. You don't want poor Cam Ward to feel like, is this how it's going to go? Is this how the
Every
NFL is?
week.
Right. So I don't know what else to say. I mean, I understand, Calvin Ridley, you're probably not playing. Tony Pollard, you might not have drafted him to start for you anyway. I guess you hope for some receptions out of the backfield. Julius Chestnut. I don't know who's going to back him up. Khalil Mullings is banged up. Yeah, poor Cam Ward. And hey, happy Broncos fans.
All right, happy Broncos fans, and then they're going to watch their offense. And I've already cautioned the local audience, so I'll caution the national audience here. Just be prepared for the offense to have some growing pains as they introduce new things. We didn't see J.K. Dobbins in the preseason. He's totally going to be the lead back, and he's a flex play. R.J. Harvey's an exciting rookie that Sean Payton had to tell himself to shut up during the draft. He's a what the heck flex this week. Like, okay. And then Troy Franklin, I'm getting questions about their wide receiver position. I believe Troy Franklin could emerge, but that number 2 receiver opposite Sutton is going to change on a weekly basis. Might be Mims, might be Franklin, might be Pat Bryant. Like, we'll see about that. Reflects on Bo Nix. Everyone's excited. It is week 1. It's Tennessee. They should beat them. But that Tennessee defense isn't going to roll over. And this Broncos offense has some sharpening to do that they were unable to do in the preseason.
And I'll give you Cease. You taking any start sit questions, Cease? Start sit.
Yes.
Evan Ingram or like Zach Ertz, Pat Freiermuth, Dalton Kincaid. I mean, what about Evan Ingram coming out of the gate?
Yeah, Evan Ingram should be rock solid. It's the Joker. Sean's going to prove that he's right about everything because he's the smartest. He discovered electricity. So Sean Payton, he's going to hit us over the head with Evan Ingram. Everyone else not named Cortland Sutton, I think we need to pump our brakes at least early.
Yeah, kind of an offense by committee. But
yes.
What might make you more inclined to play RJ Harvey or play JK Dobbins is the likely game script, right? And I guess that's the other question, I'll ask you. I've got Cecil Lammey here, NFL insider, Denver Broncos insider for over 20 years. If this game gets out of hand, who gets the carries in the second half?
Yeah, if the game gets out of hand, then it's RJ.
So maybe that's a path for RJ Harvey to be the more valuable fantasy back in this game, even though he's not necessarily the starter. And then Cortland Sutton, the number 1, glad he got paid. And we're going to, like you said, Cease, Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, Pat Bryant. Sean Payton himself said, you guys decide who's number 2, number 3. They're all going to have a role. They're all going to do stuff when they're out there in their role. You guys figure that out. So I guess what I get out of that is Cortland Sutton is the number 1, and we got a guy in Denver to answer these questions for us.
Yes, so we got a better game to talk about in the 49ers and Seattle. They hate each other, and they get each other in week 1. Awesome. It's good for us. So San Francisco side, who's healthy enough to start for your fantasy team?
Right. And Rich Rebar on the couch this week talked a lot about how this is a really fun matchup. These systems, these teams already know each other, but then you have the Seattle defense ascending, and like you said, with San Francisco's offense, there's a few questions. I think this could easily be a 9-6 kind of game. You are going to get Juwan Jennings back, probably on a pitch count. You have Pearsall in year 2. Tough matchup for him. Physical corners might be the type to give him trouble. And again, the Seattle pass rush, the Seattle defense, maybe not letting this well-oiled machine of the San Francisco offense function the way that they envision it. But you really are going to see this offense run through Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle. I think that's what you're going to expect, and maybe not a big game for the wide receivers. Maybe not even necessarily a big game for the running game. Everything's going to come tough against Seattle. A lot of preseason power polls on defensive rankings have Seattle number 1. And when their defense had all hands on deck, you really saw that. So even though San Francisco is missing some players, if Seattle has a dominant performance here in their home opener, we might not chalk that up to the players that San Francisco is missing.
Okay, let's talk about Seattle's side then, and get a lot of Kenneth Walker questions. And for me, it's just like, well, how long is he going to stay healthy? Because it's probably not the whole year.
Yeah, and the thing that we kept hearing about out of Seattle And Cease, you know this because you're very familiar with the whole Shanahan coaching tree. Here's what Clint Kubiak can do: install a blankety blank running game. That some of these offenses were saying growing pains, we're saying the first camp, how long is it going to take? How long does it take for a Clint Kubiak running game to take effect? How long did it take in New Orleans last year, right? Remember how New Orleans started out the year. So perhaps for Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, again, some hints. This may be more of a committee than people are realizing, although the Clint Kubiak running game should magnify the value of Kenneth Walker. Even if Kenneth Walker gets 60% of the touches and snaps, he can still have a career year in this system if he stays healthy. But Zach Charbonnet is definitely a what the heck flex in this game. And of course, Jackson Smith and Jigba. We'll see about Cooper Kupp, now no longer in the Sean McVay offense. Robert Saleh, that's the other thing. Robert Saleh's back. So, see, sometimes in the movie, they bring back some of the characters from the previous movies to thicken the plot here. Robert Saleh against Sam Darnold. Remember last time we saw Sam Darnold? I see dead people. Yeah, Robert Saleh is going to try with a kind of banged up makeshift front for the San Francisco defense, try to make him see those ghosts again.
4 games down, 4 games to go in part 2 of the week 1 2025 preview here on the Audible. 20 years we've been breaking down these games, and we don't get exciting ones like this all the time. Detroit and Green Bay. Detroit and Green Bay. Popcorn is ready, sir. Thank you. Oh, God, it's going to happen during the Broncos game. Damn it. Anyway, you all will be able to enjoy it on Red Zone with commercials, which is like sex with a condom. It's going to be the same, but it's not going to feel the same. And sorry, Joe, for mentioning our coital sessions we may or may not be having. Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic. Anyway, Detroit versus Green Bay. Let's start off with some Lions talk here.
Definitely, if you come to New Orleans, bring condoms. So you don't want to chance that. Listen, Detroit, Green Bay. What's really fun about this one, Cease, is again how things change. What if I told you that this game would feature the first matchup of Detroit against a Micah Parsons Green Bay defense? That's impossible. That's absurd, especially because what's really fascinating about this, and I would love if we saw the Thursday night show, Cease, just to talk out this topic, because Green Bay is exactly the kind of organization that doesn't make a move like that, right? What does that tell you about how compelling Micah Parsons is as a player? And now you add him to a defense that already was pretty good. Like, how much does that amplify the value of someone like, say, Rashawn Gary, teams knowing they have to deal with Micah Parsons on the other side? We watched Johnny Morton's offense more vertical. Well, you need to have time to throw downfield for vertical. Still think you're going to see the run game, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, although potentially a lower scoring game, outdoor Jared Goff, not a favored start for him. But we will see Jameson Williams running more of the route tree. I think he's an upside wide receiver too. Of course, Amon-Ra St. Brown, if you want to know how things went for him, just a dominant summer in training camp, which is pretty much the usual thing. Sam Laporta is healthy, or as healthy as he's going to be all year. And then our guy, Isaac Tesla. And maybe not as a what the heck flex this week in this tough matchup, but adding another vertical dimension to this passing game, which is what Johnny Morton wanted to do anyway. We're going to watch a couple of new auditions on the offensive line, additions, making new words, as always, we member. And this is so compelling, Cease. Like you said, this is the kind of matchup we would expect for playoff positioning or division title in December. We get it at Lambeau, and Dan Campbell knows Lambeau is a football cathedral. It's hallowed ground. To have this kind of game, this kind of setting, yeah, sorry you got to be watching the Broncos, Cease.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about the Packers side, though, which has more excitement on the one side than the game that I'll be forced to watch.
Yeah, and Jordan Love is coming in with a thumb injury, but it's on his non-throwing hand, so hopefully it's not an issue. You do have, here we go, take a deep breath. Jaden Reed, a Jones fracture in his foot that he was going to try to play through, got back to practice last week. He was thrilled to be back to practice, not at practice on Wednesday. Don't think we're going to see him. Dontavian Wicks has been battling an injury. I think he's limited in practice. Savion Williams has been banged up. He's limited. Really, you're looking at basically Romeo Dobbs, and of course, Matthew Golden. What a year for them to get that first-round pick, that number one receiver that they haven't drafted since in the first round since Javon Walker. So it's a big Matthew Golden. Oh, did I mention Tucker Kraft? Have I mentioned Tucker Kraft enough this summer? Boy, is this set up for him, because Jaden Reed, was doing his damage in the middle of the field. And maybe even Luke Musgrave. I'm not saying to play Luke Musgrave, but with all these wide receiver injuries, doesn't it make sense for them to go with 2 tight end sets? And they have Ben Sims too, so they can do a lot of 2 tight end sets here, which of course will set up Josh Jacobs. And Detroit gets Aiden Hutchinson back in this one. And remember, Detroit's defense, Aaron Glenn's now in New York with the Jets, but they were making do with what they had, including no Aiden Hutchinson. So we may, hey, the Packers got Parsons, but getting Aiden Hutchinson back is just as big.
Yep. Houston versus the LA Rams is next up. Interesting, odd game for a couple of reasons, because we're monitoring the health status of some old players. One's not playing, one is playing. But let's start with the Houston Texans side, Bloom.
Brand new offensive line. No running game to speak of. We'll see about Nick Chubb. We'll see about Dameon Pierce. Maybe Dameon Pierce with Nick Cayley there. Maybe if there's more power running looks, maybe we do see some more Dameon Pierce, Woody Marks, Dario Ogunbowale. But if you're the Rams preparing for this game, the Texans don't have a credible running game. They have a makeshift offensive line. We already know C.J. Stroud, so much trouble protecting him last year. The Rams defense isn't that fearsome, but maybe Jared Verse is. A lot of people saying, hey, look for a potential defensive player of the year kind of campaign from him in his second year. Braden Fisk, his college teammate, now his pro teammate, Kobe Turner. Like, they have some good players up front. So an offensive line, remember, during camp, they were trying out combinations of players to see what the best 5 would be. This is going to be a rough afternoon for the Texans offense. And by the way, Christian Kirk also a hamstring. So there's your outlet. Oh, not so fast. Jalen Noel, welcome to the NFL. Nico Collins is going to get his targets. You can play him. I don't think there's anybody else in this offense that's safe.
Yep. All right. Then we got to talk about Matthew Stafford. And we got to talk about the bacchiotomy that his doctor might be recommending. And maybe some of what Sir Smoke-A-Lot had and half-baked. Again, sorry, Joe. But Rams side is now.
Yeah, and if anybody who's familiar with childbirth, the process, now Rob Gronkowski's talking about epidurals. I guess players have been getting epidurals for back stuff for a while, which is, I learned about epidurals at one point in my life. They're kind of dangerous, you don't want to be messing around inside people's spines too often. I don't know what's going to be happening with Matthew Stafford once this game gets underway. He's going to start, and at some point during the summer, a lot of us said, okay, he's going to start week 1. Is he going to finish week 1? What's going to happen when he gets hit? What's going to happen when Donnell Hunter and Will Anderson meet at the quarterback? Okay, now Alaric Jackson, I think he's got some blood clot issues. Their left tackle sounds like he's preparing to play for week 1. So that's some good news for the Rams. Of course, you've got Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, who's going to be an upgrade from what Cooper Kupp had last year, offered in that number 2 wide receiver role. And then Kyron Williams, maybe a little more Blake Corum. But you would think with the Rams defense being able to have a strong afternoon that Kyron Williams is going to get his. But like so many of the matchups in week 1 sees, this looks like a defensive football game.
Yeah, defensive football game. And then Baltimore and Buffalo. So, okay, from one to another. One of these things not like the other. Baltimore and Buffalo, they're kind of the same. They're the bridesmaids. Is this bridesmaids war? Like bride, right. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride? Maybe this year is different. All right. Again, another popcorn game. No Isaiah Likely. That makes me sad. But let's talk Baltimore side first.
Cecil, did you say bridesmaids? Mm-hmm. If you're down by 40 or 50 points all afternoon, just hold on until Sunday night, because you're going to get a lot of fantasy points in this one.
You hot snot.
Yeah, I learned from the best, baby. On the Baltimore side, you got to love the outlook here. Christian Benford's banged up. Tre'Davious White is banged up. And just that the Bills' defense was relying on Tre'Davious White at this point. So Zay Flowers, even Rashad Bateman, there's a what the heck flex for you coming up in a few minutes. Derrick Henry, here he comes. Keaton Mitchell's back, by the way. What do you get for the offense that has everything? A speed back who can take any touch to the house. So we may see a little more of him, a little less of Justice Hill on this one, and a lot of Mark Andrews, as you said, maybe even some DeAndre Hopkins. It's going to be interesting to see if in the red zone or on key third downs that becomes Lamar Jackson's guy. Maybe it complicates things for fantasy, but this is how you get married and you're not the bridesmaid. You bring in someone like Nuke to finish the games.
Yep. Bill's side. Again, how much James Cook? We've heard a lot of good things about Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir, of course, and what they do with Josh Allen running the show. Yeah, it's Buffalo, Baltimore. I want to see points.
Oh man, the Ravens offense is getting better, including the offensive line. Remember, there was a lot of questions about their offensive line going into last year. Now that's settling down. Their defense is getting better too. This is a game where we saw Josh Allen really settle into the Joe Brady offense, the everybody eats offense last year. And you saw a lot of that sense in a game that he would have where he had to do it all himself, going back to Wyoming Cowboys, baby. And now this is going to be that kind of game, I think. So, just hope he doesn't take too many big hits, because remember, the Ravens drafted a really good safety in the first round to pair up with Kyle Hamilton. They got Jair Alexander. Jair Alexander was just kind of during training camp. Oh, by the way, they added Jair Alexander. So who is going to do damage for this Bills offense? You mentioned James Cook first and foremost, and I wonder if this is like a 25-touch James Cook game, including 6 or 7 receptions, because Keon Coleman is banged up. We're waiting to hear more about this groin injury. We hate seeing limited with an injury in practice when they didn't come into the week with that injury. So Keon Coleman, let's watch if he's even going to play. I don't think he's trustworthy unless we see him get back to a full practice. Khalil Shakir isn't a full practice after missing a month with a high ankle sprain, but it wouldn't shock me if he's not as effective in this one. So are we going to see more Elijah Moore maybe in this game? Curtis Samuel's been banged up. Maybe it's Josh Palmer. That's the guy that maybe he's going to have to make some plays downfield for this pass offense. Dalton Kincaid, who didn't have an impressive summer, had knee soreness. So again, you put all this together and you say Josh Allen's going to have to pull a rabbit out of a hat, which he can do, but those are some long odds, man.
Yeah, Josh Allen going to have to pull another rabbit out of his hat again. How do we go from Ravens Bills to this? Hey, we wrap up Monday Night Football, Vikings and Bears. Yay. Now we'll get data points on JJ McCarthy, and our buddy, speaking of popcorn, Thor Nystrom's going to have his popcorn ready. He's going to prove the world wrong. It's against the Bears. I hope so.
Yeah,
I hope so. And then feed Justin Jefferson. JJ McCarthy's job is really easy. Feed Justin Jefferson. You'll look good.
Yeah. And see, what do we think? I know a lot of people were talking about, Matt Patricia and what he did to Arch Manning. What about Dennis Allen and what he is going to throw at JJ McCarthy? In your experience when he was the Broncos?
Well, now you just got me thinking Arch Manning. I think Arch Manning's hurt. But either way.
That's the real headline.
We'll move on. You don't have poor mechanics if you're a Manning, and his mechanics were crap. So I think his shoulders hurt.
Yeah. Well, Dennis Allen is definitely going to give JJ McCarthy. That's a good headline, Cease. JJ McCarthy, it's a tough spot. Now, JJ McCarthy did work out with Adam Thielen each of the last 2 off seasons, so he might move into that role along with TJ Hawkinson. Justin Jefferson, we're going to watch him test that hamstring. Remember, we didn't really see him all summer. But this team, if the offense is going to be successful this year, it's going to be Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason and the additions on the offensive line to make this a better running team. They probably only want JJ McCarthy to throw the ball 20, 25 times at most in this game. So it's really looking like Justin Jefferson and probably TJ Hawkinson, but maybe we might see Jordan Mason run the ball 15 or 18 times and probably be the short yardage back here. Again, what's the theme in week 1? Defensive game, and these are 2 defensive-led teams. And even though it's not Caleb Williams' debut, it is his debut in the Ben Johnson offense.
Oh boy. Well, Sigmund's internet went out. You're back. Okay. That was a little hiccup.
It's because I told people to wear condoms down here.
Exactly. There you go. Just clean up your messes. Bears side.
Yeah, and it's, again, Ben Johnson, detail-oriented. Maybe some growing pains. Minnesota. Now, what's interesting here is last year against Caleb Williams, Brian Flores did not throw the house at him. Brian Flores actually seemed to kind of respect Caleb Williams. Is Ben Johnson going to, who is very familiar? Again, this is these divisional matchups in week 1. These coaches are familiar with each other, even whenever they top from one division team to the other in the case of Ben Johnson. So much to sort out. The one thing I can say for sure is DeAndre Swift is going to get a ton of work in this game. Kyle Monangai is probably going to play, but he's the number 2 back. But I think you're going to see DeAndre Swift get a lead back kind of workload here. And I don't know. Caleb's guy is Alameda Zacchaeus, and he actually might be in the Amon-Ra St. Brown role if there is one. Rome Odunze is probably the number 1. That's Ben Johnson's favorite guy. DJ Moore is the most accomplished guy here. There's also Colston Loveland, who was looking very good in training camp. And again, this is probably a team that doesn't want to throw the ball 35 or 40 times in this game. So Monday Night Football, maybe not a crescendo to the week that we're looking for, but it's week 1, Cecil. We're probably all going to just be tired and ready to have a cigarette by the time we get to Monday night.
Yeah, or smoke a cigar or something else. Let's talk about something else. What the heck, Flex? You need some punch in your lineup, and we are here for that. Now, we mentioned some along the way. I would say my man, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, is in that range of outcome. Jordan Mason, I think, could be a what the heck flex this week as well. There you go for that Monday night punch. Monday night what the heck flex punch. Ollie Gordon, I'm going to throw a chip on him there as well in what the heck flex territory. For the wide receiver position, I go and I look at Romeo Doubs. I look at Marvin Mims. I look at Rashid Shaheed. Yes, there's a Saints player I would consider as a what the heck flex, Rashid Shaheed. So, Bloom, it's week 1. Boy, if you need this help in week 1.
Yeah.
But you need that punch. You need it all the time. What's your week 1 what the heck flexes?
Oh, and it puts your fantasy football medal to the test, because just because you drafted somebody after somebody else doesn't mean you shouldn't play him this week. Some of the names that maybe you didn't draft to start week 1, but you're going to start week 1. Again, the Denver running backs, RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins. More Dobbins is the sleeper there. Jalen Warren, the clear lead back. Ramondre Stevenson, if New England can control that game against Las Vegas, even though Travion Henderson is the darling there. You want to put a chip on Nick Chubb? I mean, I hope it happens. I love Nick Chubb. Jerome Ford. It's the Cincinnati defense. After this game, we might be saying start every starting running back against Cincinnati.
Yes.
If you mentioned Krosky-Merritt, I'll mention Austin Eckler. Trey Benson in the second half in a run-out kind of game. Zach Charbonnet at wide receiver. You got to dig a little deeper. It might be a little more straightforward when you set your lineup at wide receiver. You mentioned Romeo Doubs. That's a good one. Rashad Bateman, I mentioned for big plays. Joshua Palmer for big plays. Maybe Malik Washington with Tyreek Hill and Devin Achane banged up. Adonai Mitchell, it only takes 1 against that Miami secondary that has 5 new starters. Xavier Legette and Hunter Renfrow could get some volume in PPR leagues against Jacksonville. Lammey Zacchaeus, I already mentioned. We're back, baby. We're back. It's just another moment as we come up for air for 1 second, just to say to everybody out there, thank you. We can't say enough that it wouldn't be possible without you. And you add more to our lives than we add to yours, because we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you.
He's Sigmund. I'm Cecil. We are the Audible, everyone. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned and stay frosty.